for the Unite Union. Dominic, thanks so much for joining us on this. So just remind us all exactly the reasons behind this strike action and how long discussions in the background have been brewing. Is this a recent development or something that you've been working on with bosses for years?
Well, I think the results from yesterday's ballot speak for themselves. Ground staff at Gatwick have voted overwhelmingly for strike action to demand better pay from the employers. These companies, so we've got Menzies Aviation, DHL EasyJet, ASC and Gatwick Ground Services, which is a fully owned subsidiary of British Airways, have had pay claims in since the 1st of January. Our members have been facing extreme financial hardship. I was speaking to one of the members yesterday who is a check-in agent at DHL EasyJet, who she lives in Crawley, and she was telling me that by the second week of the month, she doesn't drive, she takes a bus into work, and then after that she has to walk to work. So these members need a pay rise and they need it now.
And what sort of percentages are we talking that have been asked for on your side in terms of pay rise and offered from the employer's side?
So we put pay claims in at the beginning of the year. These were all RPI plus claims in the region of between 19 and 24%. And when the workers that we're talking about here, these are the check-in agents, they're the dispatchers, the ramp agents, the baggage handlers. They are personnel that work in safety critical roles, responsible for passenger and safety, aircraft safety, and they're earning on average under £12 an hour. They simply can't afford to put up with low pay like this any longer, while the airlines behind these companies continue to see their profits rise.
And just to give me some background, sorry I don't know this because it's all just been breaking. And so what, over the last couple of years, there's been no pay rises coming into this moment?
Well, Gatwick was decimated through COVID, as you know. We've seen pay freezes across the airport. Some of these workers have had uplifts in 2022, but what they are telling us now is they simply can't afford to survive. So the action is well and truly appropriate and necessary at this time.
I mean, clearly, £12 an hour, given the great jobs that these people do, certainly does sound low. Equally, 19 to 24% is obviously a very high nominal number. Realistically, do you think that's likely to be met? What were the percentage increases that you were offered before leading to this strike action?
So we've had offers from the various different companies ranging from 8% to 6% from British Airways, Gatwick Ground Services, all the way up to around 20%, which includes skills payments. But we are still pushing for over RPI pay increases because of the low pay at the airport. The members are telling us that they get paid the next week they're broke. They can't afford to continue like this.
Interesting spread there. Which companies are offering 20%?
Okay, so we've had an offer from DHL EasyJet, which starts at around 8.5. There was an extra piece of work that DHL EasyJet wanted to do, which was around skills pay, because what they found was that they had skilled workers, for example, tow team workers who were responsible for pushing aircraft, that they simply weren't able to upskill because they weren't paying enough in the market to attract these workers. So there's an additional element to that pay offer, but still the underlying cost of living increase, it still sits at 8.5%.
So on the flip side, Dominic, I'm sure there's great concern from you and your members about the impact on passengers. And just stepping back, I mean, I think it's probably fair to say that passengers, particularly in peak summer months, haven't had a great experience over the last couple of years for all sorts of reasons, strike action just one of them. To what extent do you think that there's a risk you permanently damage demand for the industry as a whole and specifically for Gatwick Airport with this sort of action, which I presume will have quite a lot of disruption for passengers?
Well, this dispute isn't about punishing hardworking families. This is about making sure that Gatwick ground staff earn a wage that they can survive on. And that isn't the mood music that we've been coming out of, that we've been hearing coming out of these companies. These are extremely wealthy companies. The claims that we've put in are affordable. And I think passengers will rightly be angry, and I think they should direct that anger towards the companies and the airlines. They've had over 6 months to make an offer that's acceptable to these staff, and they're not prepared to wait any longer.
Nonetheless, is there a message for the families that will be travelling this summer that will be disrupted?
Of course, we don't want to see disruption at the airport. And we say to the employers that if you're willing to put offers onto the table, we will join you in the negotiations, and we will negotiate with you in good faith to make sure that this can be avoided. But the need for this is great.
And I mean, I totally get the point, but I mean, on one level, you've just told me that there were some offers on the table of a 20% pay rise. That's pretty significant. I mean, clearly just yesterday in other sectors, including teaching, NHS and the legal profession, settlements are starting to be agreed around 6 or 7%. So there's quite a big gap there. I totally get your point that there are very wealthy companies, albeit that have had their troubles, particularly post and during the pandemic, that clearly hit the travel industry pretty hard. I'm just wondering whether you don't want to address it specifically, because some people won't blame totally the employers, and they'll think, oh, if they've offered 20% and they're going to ruin my holiday, the blame has got to be apportioned, proportionally.
Well, that's a very small proportion of members that we're talking about here. We're talking about maybe 20 to 30 members that were offered that particular sum with their skills uplift. And I think the point to make here is whether it be 15, 16, 17% of very little is not very much.
Fair enough. Well, listen, thanks so much for joining us today, Dominic. We really appreciate you jumping on quickly after announcing this action. The news there